Kuku, salami, shalom. I'm happy to see you. Oh no, that's only the camera of my phone. So just smash the like button or subscribe or leave a comment that indicates the rhythm of Al Gore to suggest the video to others. And total best is sharing a link of this video on social media. Apparently, it poses a problem for human rights, calling my channel Human Lives Matter. So as I'm a crowd, because I'm born in Germany and a kike, I call it now Crikecast. If you never heard about Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum, I made an overview in this video. Sometimes referrals are on my channel disabled, I don't know why, and therefore I show the thumbnail with the titles and you can find the video if you're interested. I stumbled also about this World Economic Forum video that is clearly cheering for the content of the racist theory of social Darwinism, pretending it's tolerance. So let's watch it. Animals pass on privilege too, scientists say, like Thomas Henry Huxley, I suppose, or his grandson Julian Huxley, who was president of UNESCO and the British Eugenics Society. Also founder of the World Wildlife Fund, and Julian Huxley also wrote the next step of eugenics is transhumanism, like best is to change your abilities by augmenting you with technique, especially if you don't think like me, we put a chip in your brain until you think like me. Very tolerant. And they had also, it was even before 1877, in history of landholding in Ireland, why people are richer, that they must be genetic superior. The answer, Philip von August Haeckel and Richard Hofstadter are also like, this are the scientists that say animals pass on privilege too. So, and that remembers me on the female dating strategy, which resembles the Nazi T4 euthanasia program checkboxes, in that Nazis were the first to arrest low-income people in 1933. And the corresponding official Nazi Alfred Rosenberg was at that task. And also, if somebody was too small, he was killed. They didn't say exactly which size, but tall is good for Nazis. Also in female dating strategy. And it wasn't given, even if you are too stupid, except if you are very stupid and are a member of the party, which means if you are woke today. Yeah, somehow character, no. Huh? What's character? Bit of parents often pass on advantages to their offspring. So good inheritance is scientific qualification of one's biology. That's in having money. Did you get money from your grandfather is a kind of a genetic process. And they are not rich patients that have sons named Hunter Biden. But scientists have found striking parallels in animals from chimps to clownfish. Some species of red squirrel pass down stores of acorns to their offspring. CBDC since 2020 from the prepaid 60% cotisation out front that even low wages get taken before they see any penny normally. According to income, there's a payback disguised as a welfare. That's in France. And in my case, there were withheld up to 90% each time, just after every video, just justified criticism of Emmanuel XIV from the Renaissance Party, because he could not sue me for provable facts. Without any context but explanations that everyone agrees, who bends his brain into a pretzel, according to the official narrative line. Then PayPal announced penalty bills for wrong think, which arrived also in my case. And since my bank, PayPal, and my president is by Larry Fink, chairman of BlackRock, Larry Fink, well, in France we say ingratitude is alien to Macron. You could also think that, like in the horror film of the franchise Alien, everything belongs to his company, but I know how many of you also had officially inexplicable financial problems, which came in a well-synchronized random at the time you didn't collaborate with the woke genetically poorer squirrels set spinning limits. Because now in France, since we have CBDC, the bank says, no, you can only use this amount of money per week in your case, except if you belong to the establishment. And it doesn't matter that you paid always your debts, while people with papers in Panama don't get any problems. Young squirrels who inherit them have better chance of survival. Saving is innate, so colonized people have bad genes because they did not save the stolen resources and what's in Franc Africain. But members of the World Economic Forum like Christine Lagarde also offer sine sides to access the economies of those old folks who are never invited to Davos. Chimps and capuchin monkeys pass down stone nut-cracking tools. Chimpanzees also commit murder, and sometimes a tribe of chimpanzees eradicates another, meaning chimp genocide. And the dental gold from the executed relatives is found as Nazi gold in Switzerland, where Klaus Bobby Schwab lives. Of course, it's not his fault, but certain species of brown squirrels in his family did it out of sheer instinct. Inheritance is genetic programmed, and your DNA did wire the money. Inheritance tax on trillionaires is simply unnatural, so back to nature. Or corruption. Young male red grousers get better access to courtship rituals when their fathers are nearby, and then the World Economic Forum explains that being friends from Epstein was okay as long as you are rich. The older men and women are only there for the future of the children, to destroy it, giving them a better shot at mating than those whose fathers are dead. Back to Sinicide. But this doesn't end with mammals and birds. Clownfish had the right to hide in the comfiest bit of sea anemone, except when the CCP thought it was cheaper than digging a cesspool, clogging the coral reefs with shit. And as Klaus Schwab said,
but the Chinese model is certainly a very attractive model.
Okay, while some female European paper wasps inherit whole nests and better chances of breeding, paper wasp was an illusion of paper wasps, which first require us to buy their husband's goods through digital identification and therefore have a lot of money for the next wasps. Well, you know, organizes the husband hikers is the boss, and they are part via BioNTech of Pfizer. And this company had before children must humanize your identity done before that period, the longest 2 weeks, you know. What had they been? Researching mRNA for gene editing. So we are back to social Darwinism, which Huxley said, okay, if you don't think like me, then you have a chance you don't get gas, but you get a chip in the brain that tells you that you think like me. Very tolerant. And the last dose of the gene editing, of this wonderful thing, was also tested on 8 rats before giving it to your children. To the lab, a more lethal Boston version, it was necessary to use 10 rats because there are some priorities, and soon Sears 23, like in October 2019, there had been the event 201. Business leaders and politicians did a pandemic game for a pure imaginary case of an outbreak of a virus of the corona family. Now Gates is doing the same thing with Sears, a small endocrine virus that targets children's brains because we haven't been scared enough and we are too many. Total population loss in several countries of 1 million, like Russia, Japan, whatever, in the last 2 years are an unimportant detail because he's on mission. All environmental decisions are based on the 1980s, when the establishment wasn't senile yet. And by the way, on the one hand, I had refused the Urso gift because I am for the Nuremberg Code. And by pure coincidence, according to the last test results, my fertility is excellent, but since I do not force pregnancy, I have no children, so write me. And just like in humanity, it divides deeply over generations. Spotted hyenas to highborn females get better access to food. Over time, these females produce larger offspring. That's why Bill Gates is promoting fewer children and himself has 3 unnurtured children. Klaus Schwab has 2 unnurtured children. I think have 3 unnurtured children. While you should have trans children that are nurtured. And dear conspiracy theorists, Larry, Klaus, and Bill are Christians, at least on paper, not Jews. And the underprivileged die out. See Sri Lanka, Ghana, on Dr. Trudeau, euthanasia, and in France, it's simply social isolation and smoking you financially out, which looks like a suggestion to follow the plan of the French president's tutor. There was no pacemaker fitted after my stroke on grounds that the one battery charge lasts longer than 10 years, and so I'm more than 8 years overdue because it was in 2005. And there was no life insurance for me because according to the data I should have been dead for a long time. Somehow didn't work. because leaving someone on public train station for several hours, and then when he comes in the hospital, throwing him several times on the floor like oops, and then he survives, indicates more like he's really tough. And if they had been coming only after 1 hour and would be still awareness and not making videos. Because definitely somebody has always some small gene that supposedly is harmful for the moment, and then it turns out that it has an incredible advantage because the bigger the genetic pool, the less inbreeding, and incest makes stupid. Any form of human breeding, whether targeting the same color, their mixed color, or a certain height, shows a high rate of genetic defects afterwards, because humans are very complicated, and my favorite race is Homo sapiens. It's just great. The researchers say they're studying the deep evolutionary roots of inequality. So as I mentioned, there have been real scientists like Thomas Henry Huxley, his grandchild Julian Huxley, the president of UNESCO, who also had the British Eugenics Society. You know, eugenics means killing people, and who promoted transhumanism as a new label of eugenics, because measuring heads of phrenology turned out to be totally bogus. So let's put another word for it, like don't call it fascism, don't call it public-private partnership, something like that. So this scientist, Emil Gautier, Ernst Rey, Philipp August Haeckel, Richard Hofstetter, also presumed that not the education but the genetics lead to family tradition, which just justified the guild system of the medieval times. Could help us understand how it operates in human society. How is your country fighting inequality? Turns out that the economy of the guild system is totally the opposite of Kitece Deuteronomy chapter 24 verse 16. Lo yumsoi al boinim, lo yumsoi al avos, ish bereto. Don't punish the sons for the father. That goes quite deeper than presuming only guilt, but also merit of competencies. You don't inherit the merit. It's more probable, but it's not a guarantee. And sometimes somebody from Fraunhofer grew up not with as a physicist, in totally poverty. He was in child labor. So there goes this theory away with the squirrels and the sea animals. And there's also a contrary to a reset into the medieval guild system when where not only everybody knows everybody, but also everybody bribes everybody, like in Davos. This is totally there's a two-old system of meritocratic, like the Deuteronomy, Dvarim, chapter 1:15, and there you can take Ve'ekach eis Roishe as leaders, take as leaders into head positions, Rosh, head, Anashim, people. So, okay, which kind of people? When Chachamim vayudoim, Chachanim, smart or knowledgeable, someone who learned Yudoim with experience, who can do that thing, as contrary to someone who has no plan, never done it, or someone who did it wrong for years. Other animals had been running, and the fastest catches the squirrel, and the other died out. A chimp learned how to poke a stick into squirrel's chest. A Homo sapiens had a friend, Homo sapiens, who made a slingshot but wasn't so good in target practice. Instead of dying out, both of them, or simply waiting until in millions of years somebody will be born who can do both, we simply left the food chain using thinking instead of growing longer teeth. And we are now the most successful species on this planet. People can hunt bears that otherwise can eat villagers, so a new Homo sapiens and a bear, it's clear who wins. It's not the Homo sapiens. Who could be the best for the job at hand? Opportunity, and not that the father squirrel had a nutcracker stone, which is good as a judge's hammer. One person gives another an opportunity, even if it's their own son, and especially also if it's not their own son. And there's a book about it that just came in 3,500 years ago. There had been smart people in the past, some dumber than me and some really, really smarter than me. And bummer, sometimes the smartest idea didn't come from the smartest. The smart thing was to recognize the smart idea as smart, which means if you have an argument, you can win the argument, convince or learn, never both.